All right. Well, thank you so much. It's such a blessing to see kids in church on a Wednesday night and adults ministering to them. So you kids are very blessed. You really are. You got parents that love you, and they understand the value of a Christian education, or to get the Word of God in you. Because whether you know it or not, there's a battle all around you. Anybody know what that battle is? Anybody? How about God's truth versus Satan's lies? It's in every area. It's in every area of life. God's got a way of doing it, and Satan's got a way to corrupt it. And so tonight we're going to show you some of the lies that he's using in our public school textbooks. And also we're going to show you some really fun websites. And just to give you a little bit of taste of what I do, I go to a lot of campuses, and this is kind of what we like to do. There we go. So go to a lot of campuses. You go wherever God opens the doors. That's at St. Cloud State. There. It's Florida. St. Cloud State. God's Word versus man's Word. This is from their science book at the college. Are you a mutated animal or made in God's image? And it's a lot of fun. I'm so thankful somebody cracked the door of creation open to me 20 years ago. Yeah, 20 years ago, and I kicked it down. So hopefully some of you guys will kick it down. And 20 years from now, they might be flying you around America to hear what you have to say. Because this summer they flew me to Houston twice. What have I been doing? Last week, I was down in Asheville, North Carolina, where that big flood went through. And if you see that sand on the house, that's river sand on the roof. It was just devastating down there. There's a building that got eroded into the river. There's a van that's halfway down. This is what happens to a car when it gets caught in the current. And we went down there. I think mainly God sent us there. It got put together in 2 weeks. I couldn't believe it. They announced it on Sunday, and we left the next Sunday. And there was 18 of us who went down there. Pleasureland rented a camper or donated a camper. And we unloaded a 50-foot trailer. There was one church that filled up a 50-foot semi-trailer. And this is their church. This is where they're going to have service. That's the screens that they're going to sing from, like right here. And those are the chairs. And see the chairs on the side? The other food distribution place got destroyed in the flood. And so I got like 40 minutes, or 38, 37. So I'm going to give you the best of the best that I got, because I don't know if I'll be in Burwell again. So I'm going to share with you my most memorable class in high school. 40-some years ago, I was in school, and I've had a lot of classes, but this is the one that sticks to me. I remember it. It was senior math. We're learning about probability. You know, what's the chance of a dice landing on a 6? What is that?
1 in 6.
1 in 6, exactly right. That's right. And so we had casino day. All we did in class was play gambling games. And we had the chips, and he set the odds. And so if the odds was 1 in 6 and you shake it, the odds were 1 in 3. You won 3 chips if you bet 1. And that's how it is. He said, if you gamble long enough, you're going to lose. They don't build those casinos and those hotels by winning people. It's by losing people. I've got a number behind my back. And, okay, let's see. Who thinks they can get it? Who thinks it's 1? Who thinks it's 2? Who thinks it's 3? Who thinks it's 4? Who thinks it's 5? Who thinks it's 6? Who thinks it's 7? There you go, it was 7. Okay? So your odds of getting it is 1 in 10. And if you got it 1 in 10 three times, the odds of it happening are 1 in 1,000, right? But what do you win? You win $500. See, I used to think that gambling was a tax on people who didn't understand math. And then I went into their website, and it shows you win $500, but the odds are 1,000, 1 in 1,000. And if you get one number right, or two numbers right, it should be 1 in 100 and 1 in 50. So basically, you're getting half of what the odds are of actually happening. So now it's not a tax on people that don't understand math. It's a tax on people who can't read. And so I encourage you to stay away with that, because that can be very addicting. And we'll start with the basics here. I had this at a booth at a county fair. I like talking to people, like having them think about God. And one way of doing that is, hey, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Who thinks the chicken? Who thinks the egg? Who doesn't know? Okay, all right. Well, I didn't know this till I was 32. And I heard a guy say, you know what, God said he made the birds first, not the eggs. So the chicken came first. And there you go, according to God's word. Besides, if he made the egg first, what would hatch it? But that's what it's going to say in Wikipedia. Birds came from reptiles, so they say the eggs came first. That's a lie from Satan. And what else? Oh, somebody told me that God made the chicken with the eggs inside of it. And it just took a while for the eggs to come out. And that's a true statement too. And if you ever get in a conversation with somebody who doesn't believe in God, just ask them, hey, how did life begin? They have no clue. Contrary to what they use fuzzy words in the textbooks, like somehow. And on the back table, you can see a copy of their textbook. Somehow, despite this harsh environment, living organisms appeared. And they have no idea. And if the teacher tries to tell you, oh yeah, we figured it out, well then how come there's $10 million on the table? Go into evo2.org. $10 million. Anybody want to make $10 million? Okay, all you have to do is show how the DNA got inside a cell and replicated. They can't do it. Where did DNA come from? It's good information. That's right. It's good information going bad. That's what we see in science. Where did the good information come from? And then the Bill Nye, Ken Ham debate. Anybody here see that? It's on YouTube. And during Q&A, the question for Bill Nye was, where did matter come from? And he said, don't know. It's a mystery. That's why we do science. And then Ken Ham said, Bill, there's a book that tells us where matter come from. And the same thing. The next question for him, Bill, how did consciousness come from matter? Don't know. It's a mystery. And then there's a book that tells us. But they're willingly ignorant. And then I was at an event where there was a bunch of Christians. So what do you ask Christians? I asked them, when did dinosaurs live? Who thinks millions of years? Who thinks thousands of years? Who doesn't know? Okay, yeah. And Christians, they said it was 81 to 51, millions of years one, which shows that we're doing a bad job in the church as a whole of teaching people about dinosaurs with the Bible, explaining it with the Bible. Basically, dinosaurs are land animals made on day 6 with all the other land animals. 2 of every kind got on the ark. They were young, so they could still fit through the door. And then all the other dinosaurs died in the flood, and a lot of them turned into fossils. And then they got off the ark. People called them dragons and killed them and carved them into castles and temples and caves. And so that's how he's explained dinosaurs in the Bible. And that points to a judgment, because once that flood came, once God shut the door, there was no more mercy. It was judgment. And that's what's coming again. And you can see more of this on my YouTube channel called Solidify Your Faith. What's my YouTube channel called? There you go, yeah. And there's cards in the back, so you can got that. There's handouts also. And Creation Basics. When I'm talking at St. Cloud State and they say, you know, I believe in science, not God, or religion, I'll say, well, what do you mean by science? You know, science is observation and testing. You know, the scientific method, observable, testable, repeatable, falsifiable. And if they agree with that definition, it's like, well, that's not evolution. That's not the Big Bang. We can't observe matter coming from nothing. We can't observe molecules turning into man. And then what do you mean by evolution? They might say, you know, that's what they do in the textbooks. You got these little changes, big dogs, little dogs. And they see that's evolution. Therefore, molecules turn into man, fish turn into fishermen. Bacteria turn into Baptists. You know, that's what they say, and that's 2 different evolutions. Okay, and then how did life begin? Where did matter come from? We touched on that. And this, descentfromdarwin.org, there's over 1,000 PhD scientists who doubt Darwinian evolution. They sign on to this, and they put their job in jeopardy by signing on to this. We are skeptical of the claims of the ability of random mutation and natural selection to account for the complexity of life. Careful examination of the evidence for our Darwinian theory should be encouraged. So there's over 1,000 PhDs. So when you're being taught evolution in school, just say, teacher, could you show us the descentfromdarwin.org website? Because there's 1,000. I emailed my senator, Senator Representative Putnam from Minnesota, and I said, when they're teaching this in evolution in school, could they teach this fact also? This is a fact. You got to have a PhD to sign this. There's over 1,000 PhDs that doubt it. And again, you can see that on here. And then evolution is false. And you can't support something false with truth. So you got to lie to people to make them believe a lie. And these are our 2024 textbooks that are from my school district, St. Cloud. And it says, this is a video that they show, the chemicals, the raw ingredients that make up life were constantly sloshing around, bumping into each other and combining into new chemistry over millions of years. Now, millions of years is when your baloney detector should go off, or billions of years. That means there's a fairy tale coming after that. That's not observation, that's not testing, that's not science. That's a belief system about the past. And that past is based on blind chance and random collisions. Okay, so over millions of years, oh yeah, the baloney detector goes, bah, so everybody do it. Okay, so if you ever see millions of years or billions of years, that's your clue. Bah, okay, that process can lead to living organisms. There's not a scientific paper on the planet that supports that statement. And if you don't believe me, listen to Jonathan Sarfati. This is from Creation Ministries International. I didn't get it on the sheet, but they have minute videos, nice short ones. And I copied 80 of them, and I play them at St. Cloud State with my Bluetooth speaker, and here's one of them.
We're taught that chemical evolution started in the oceans, but you say that's the last place you'd expect to look. Why?
Well, okay, to build up a big molecule called a polymer from many little molecules called monomers, for instance, proteins from amino acids and DNA or RNA from the nucleotide building blocks, every step of the way, every combination spits out a water molecule. They call that condensation. But if you already have water molecules dissolving these things, then the water would come back and actually break that bond apart. It's called hydrolysis. So if you try to do this in water, it's the hydrolysis, the breaking apart that would happen and not the forming. In fact, chemists who want to make proteins or DNA or RNA, they exclude water as much as they can. They even have water absorbing chemicals to draw out the water. So a primordial ocean is the last place I'd expect to find these polymers forming.
And yet that's the best theory they got. I could have showed you another video where it says the theory with the most evidence is the prebiotic soup one, where they say it happened in water, and it can't. And if you want to see that short clip, you can go into RSR, that stands for Real Science Radio, rsr.org/NASA-water, and you can hear a NASA scientist admit that water destroys life. Life can't start in water. And she says, oh, well, it's widely recognized. Not in the textbook, it's not. And then why are there blood cells or nerves still in dinosaur bones? Did you guys know that? They found blood cells 20 years ago in a dinosaur bone, and that can't last millions of years. Yeah, and it really bothers them. And it says, Schweitzer's dangerous discovery. You know, what's dangerous about blood cells? It's only dangerous to the power structure, who depends on evolution. You get your money and your finance and your prestige. And then that microscopy today, that one on the right, those are dinosaur nerves. I've seen them with my own eyes. And just the more you zoom in on them, the more beautiful they get. The more you zoom in on something man-made, the more imperfections you see. But listen to Mary Schweitzer. She's the one who found it. And here, they're going to say millions and billions of years, so get your baloney detectors ready.
Is that amazing to find this kind of soft tissue in a fossil this old? And what can the soft tissue really tell us?
Well, it's very amazing. It's utterly shocking, actually, because it flies in the face of everything that we understand about how tissues and cells degrade. It's not something that any one of us could ever predict or hope for.
Yeah, it's not utterly shocking, actually, because it flies in the face of everything that we understand about tissues and cells, about how they degrade.
Is the fact that this stuff was fossilized as it was, of 70 million years old, you don't expect to find soft tissue, do you?
Not at all. No. It was utterly shocking.
So you have to sort of rewrite the book as far as fossilization goes, I assume.
Well, that's the exciting part for me. I've always been very intrigued by how things change in going from a living being to part of the rock record. And like I said, a lot of our science doesn't allow for this. All of the chemistry and all of the molecular breakdown experiments that we've done don't allow for this. So if this material turns out to be actual remnants of the dinosaur, then yes, I think we will have to do some certainly rethinking of some of the basics of the model of fossilization.
You know, well, Mary, when I was reading about this story, I was amazed that in some of the capillaries, when you went to pull them, they snapped right back. Are you amazed at the quality of these remains?
Absolutely.
70 million years old, huh?
It's just doesn't seem possible. But yes, you can actually take the vessels, and they do have internal components, and so you can take a probe and kind of squeeze those things out into solution, and the vessels are fine. It's just, I can't explain it, to be honest.
But Bob Enyart, the guy from Earth Science Radio, he says, he calls up her boss and says, we'll give you $20,000 if you carbon date that bone. And the guy says, well, we won't expect to find carbon-14 in it because it's too old. Because C14 only works up to about 100,000 years max. And then Bob says, yeah, I know, but we won't expect to find blood cells in there either. But the guy would not do it. And, the fossils still say, no, this is from Acts and Facts. This is you can sign up for this. It's free. A free newsletter that comes however often. Go into ICR.org and sign up for it. And it says that the presence of actual undecayed tissue in fossils found in virtually every level of the geologic column completely undermines evolution's deep time paradigm. Okay, so it's all based on lies. It really is. This is the one that really bothers me. The video says that we're only 1.6% different from a chimpanzee. And that's been wrong for decades. And according to, let's see, where is this? PubMed, it says the divergence between samples of chimpanzees and human DNA sequence is 5%, not 1.6. But the difference between those two is over 100 million base pairs in our DNA. So that's a big thing to worry about. And then Nature, that's not a Christian organization, says the fickle Y chromosome, the common chimp and the human Y chromosomes are horrendously different from each other. That's not 1.6. And you can go into Answers in Genesis. They have a research journal, answersresearchjournal.org, from a PhD in geneticists. He says only 69% of the chimpanzee Y chromosome was similar to humans, and only 43% of the Y chromosome. So it's 67% different. That's huge. And genome-wide, only 70% of the chimpanzee DNA was similar in humans under the most optimum sequence slice conditions. So we're 30% different, not 1.6. And I pointed it out to our school board, and they didn't do anything. And you can hear those school board comments on my YouTube channel. And then the same thing, these are Haeckel's drawings. These were proven wrong 100 years ago. It doesn't matter if you're a bird, a chimp, or a bird, a bunny, or a human. The embryo looks all the same. And those are images real similar to Haeckel's drawings, which he admitted to were frauds. And you go into New Science, that's the ones on the bottom. That's what they actually look like in the middle. So they were fakes. They were frauds. Well, that was when Darwin was alive. It's been 150 years or so, and things are still in there. And don't take my word for it. The New Scientist, how fudged embryo illustrations led to drawn-out lies. This is in 2015. It's embarrassing but true. Some of the most influential drawings in the history of biology are wrong, exaggerated to fit a thesis. And again, this is from 1997. They still appear in reference books such as Gray's Anatomy. And I had that booth at our county fair trying to get this information out there, and the guy says, well, we should update the textbooks. I says, these are 2024 textbooks. You can't get any newer than this. And they're online. Junior high and high school in our school, they're online, so it'd be real easy to fix it. And I asked our school, our curriculum director, our superintendent, the school board, could you contact the publisher and let them know these are bad, these videos have false information, and take them down? None, they didn't. And so I'll be going back. They're my mission field, I guess. And it says, although Haeckel confessed to drawing from memory, he was convicted of fraud at the University of Vienna. The drawings still persist. That's the real mystery. Exactly. So they can't support a lie with truth, so they're supporting it with lies. Here's another one. Scientists haven't been able to come up with a working hypothesis as to why our retinas are set up backwards. Because the photoreceptors are behind cells, and they think that's illogical. There aren't any scientifically proven positives. Well, they haven't read the Smithsonian, apparently, because this was 10 years ago. Here's why your eyes seem to be wired backwards. Light has to pass through nerve cells to get to the rods and cones, but that order is no mistake. And they go on and tell how glial cells indeed create columns of concentrated light. And this is from Medical Express. It talks about the glial cells are like fiber optic cables. So it's an incredible design. Green and red are concentrated 5 to 10 times more by the glial cells. And it's concentrated more, and this optimization is such that color vision during the day is enhanced while nighttime vision suffers very little. So it's a false statement. And this one's about Lucy. They found an almost complete skeleton. So almost complete. This is from Coal Springs, 10th grade biology. It says it's remarkably complete. So almost complete, remarkably complete. This is from the textbook at St. Cloud State, nearly complete. Yeah, good. Almost. Does this look almost complete, remarkably complete, nearly complete? No, it's like 70% gone. And so, and do they change the theory to fit the data, or do they change the data to fit the theory? And this is what they found. The middle thing is what they found. To the left is a chimp, to the right is a human. And what did they do? They switched it, and they cut it. And I was at a kiosk next to the anthropology department and said, did you know they cut Lucy's hip to make it a human hip? And they said, no, they didn't. I said, sure they did. She said, no, they didn't. I said, I got it on my computer. Do you want to see it? No, I don't want to see it. You know, don't confuse me with the facts. I got my mind made up. But this is from Nova. Check this out.
The perfect fit was an illusion that made Lucy's hip bone seem to flare out like a chimp's. But all was not lost. Lovejoy decided he could restore the pelvis to its natural shape. He didn't want to tamper with the original, so he made a copy in plaster. He cut the damaged pieces out and put them back together the way they were before Lucy died. It was a tricky job, but after taking the kink out of the pelvis, it all fit together perfectly, like a three-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. As a result, the angle of the hip looks nothing like a chimp's, but a lot like ours.
Well, I hope so. If you cut it apart and put it back together the way you want to, but that's what they're doing, and that's not the only example. If you go into Creation Science 104, you can see Dr. Carl Werner's work, and he's got a guy saying, you know, I made the chimp, you know, I made the Homo habilis skull this big, and the discoverer says, no, it's got to be bigger. It's got to be an ape man. He says, no, but this is how it fits. And then he gave it to somebody else, and that other person made it bigger. And you can see a lot of this stuff. And then this one, it says that the Earth's oldest rock was found in 2008 at the Hudson Bay. But in 2019, it said that it was found on the moon. NASA said it was found on the moon. And there's a theory that explains why the near side of the moon is pounded, a biblical theory. The near side of the moon is pounded, it's got the lava flows, the moon quakes, and the far side is just peppered. And that's odd because the Earth protects the near side. And there's a hydroplate theory that explains it perfectly, how that happened. And this is me at the school board meeting. If you want to see that, you can go into my YouTube channel. We'll skip over that. But this I think you might find interesting. Watch the guy on the bottom right, his expressions.
So let me know what you think.
This is the most insane space news in a really long time. This asteroid, called Bennu, is 63 million kilometers away. That's 160 times farther than the moon is. Over the last few years, this spacecraft called OSIRIS-REx traveled all the way there, touched its surface, grabbed a sample, and brought it all the way back to Earth. And what they found in that sample is insane. It's rich in carbon, nitrogen, and organic compounds, all of which are essential to life as we know it, but we've seen that before. The asteroid is also covered in a mineral called serpentine, which looks like this. And these samples look just like the type of rock that we find here in mid-ocean ridges. This is where the stuff from the mantle of the Earth comes up and touches the water. It's underwater. Scientists think that this asteroid could be a chunk of an ancient small ocean world. This could be a piece of an old watery planet that's been traveling through space for billions of years, and we just took a sample of it.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
Wow. Oh my goodness. She needs a raise for more proud.
We have a few minor tweaks for. You know, first of all, that watery planet, let's call it Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Lee likes to say.
What everyone just saw on display was an example of a victim of the government schools. a victim of the deceptions and the errors that Brian has uncovered, that girl, to not even consider that this giant water planet is Earth, but that it's been traveling through space for millions of years, is because she has been victimized by exactly what Brian's been uncovering. And it's actually sad. It's sad to see, but it is instructive as to the work we have to do.
Yeah, and it's called the hydroplate theory. And I'm just appalled at the lack of curiosity in our science departments at St. Cloud State, at our high school, at our community college. Nobody wants to look at it. And yet it's making accurate predictions. You know, it shows it accurately predicted what would be in a comet, what asteroids would be made of, and NASA's been wrong a lot. And I've got a whole, on my YouTube channel, I've got kid talks, college talks, church talks, but there's one that's hydroplate talks. It's just hydroplate. I encourage you to take a look at it, because that'll color in the details on what happened during the flood. That's what happened to me, going to rsr.org and Walt Brown Week. I listened to him being interviewed for that week, and it just colored in all the details. It's like, this is what happened during the flood. And it's my favorite talk to give, but we don't have time for that. Let's move on. Let's give you some fun websites so you can take this sheet home. It's on the table back there, and you can use it as a bookmark in your Bible. And I challenge you to listen to at least one creation video a day. And some of them are only a minute, but that's fine. And just think if you do that for a year, or 5 years, or 10 years, just think how sharp you're going to be. Then you're going to be really valuable in this battle. You'll be able to stand up and expose the errors of evolution, and you'll be able to stand up strong and know it. You can put an evolutionist back on their heels just by asking them, how did life begin? And then answer their questions. And this is debunked.org, and this I play at St. Cloud State. As people are walking back and forth to class, this is on my Bluetooth speaker.
Lots of people say there's no evidence for God. Well, we're going to knock that one out in 3. I'm just going to have to keep it simple, throw in the old 1-2 combo, get in and out real quick, and let you fine folks chat all about it, okay? Punch 1 I'm going to call the info uppercut. When's the last time you walked into a library and asked, hey, where are all the books that have been written by mindless products of natural laws? The librarian would probably laugh at you and tell you that no such books exist. And they don't exist because they can't exist. Why not? Because first of all, it's just common sense. The words that form the message in books always originate from a person with a brain. Or to say it a bit more scientifically, the message of the book, the purpose, comes to be understood by the orderly placement of the words, design, and information. Information. Now, anytime we find info, these basic laws always apply. Number 1, matter doesn't spontaneously produce information. Number 2, only a mental source, intelligence, can generate new creative information. In other words, just like those books that couldn't originate without a mind, neither could life. Why not, you ask? Because we know that DNA contains information. Therefore, the laws of information science apply, which means the information in DNA couldn't have spontaneously generated, and that a mind is behind the information. Period. No exceptions. Look at it this way. The simplest life form we know of is an amoeba, and it contains as much information in its DNA as 1,000 complete sets of Encyclopedia Britannica. So, are we to believe that there's no way a message in a library book could spontaneously generate, but far more complicated messages in DNA that contain 1,000 times more information could have? Not likely. You see, when it comes to life or anything else that contains information, the laws of information science confirm the necessity of a creative mind. And guess what? In the very first book of the Bible, it just happens to mention that. In the beginning, God created. Bam! Uppercut lands on the chin. And now here comes the indefensible head blow. We'll call this the not a big bang bing swing, the KO to the claim that there's no evidence of God, the law of causality, left hook of doom. It goes like this. Everything that had a beginning had a cause. The universe had a beginning, therefore the universe had a cause. Now, either something caused the universe to come into existence, or nothing caused it. I might not be the smartest guy behind the telescope, but honest, practical, everyday thinking going to lead me to the latter. You have to work pretty hard to conjure up a way that nothing did it. You see, it's pretty improbable, nigh impossible, to account for design, information, and cause if the universe just exploded from nothing. Smack! And while we're on the topic, where did the matter come from that exploded? Are we really to believe that there was nothing and then it exploded, and now the exploded nothing is something, and we just happen to be smart enough to discover and understand the very laws that prove the opposite? And if the general understanding of the law of cause and effect is true, how can matter come from a lesser cause like nothing? I mean, come on. I don't have a bunch of letters after my name, but even a monkey knows better. And yeah, I snuck in a couple of extra jabs in there, so sue me. Now for some parting words from our sponsor, the Bible. It tells us in Romans 1:20 that since the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so they are without excuse. It also says that people actually know the truth, but they reject it, which explains why even though there's overwhelming evidence that there is a God, evidence won't convince the unwilling. Sad but true. So there you have it. With just a couple of meaningful blows, the claim that there is no evidence for God is down for the count, mi amigos. In other words, it's been debunked. Adios. This video is fully funded by a generous donation. To keep debunked videos free, please consider a tax-deductible donation or reach out to us to sponsor a video.
Yeah, so in 5 minutes you can get up to speed. You can get up to speed on that. And when you meet scoffers of the Bible, just say, hey, you've just validated the Bible. The Bible said you'd come. In the last days there'd be scoffers walking after their own lusts. So when people scoff, that just proves you just prove the Bible. You keep scoffing, or no, don't keep scoffing. But this is from Science Uprising. Oops. Yeah, ScienceUprising.com. These are intelligent design people, and they go along with the old Earth. So just understand that they have really good arguments so that we can use.
Modified monkeys? Is that what we are? Is that what we are? Or is it just a mask some scientists want us to wear?
The origin of life community has not been honest.
Materialists understand that materialism cannot explain the mind.
Who am I?
Rather than abandoning materialism, they abandon the mind.
Our planet has water and carbon, both necessary for life. So the Earth is exceedingly rare.
You get many people deceived, thinking that life has been all but made.
We come from the way out of space. We'll show you the way out of here.
There exists a code so complex and advanced that it defies the probability of chance.
When we see information in software and we trace that information back to its source, we always come to a mind as part of what we know from our observation of the world around us. That information always arises from an intelligent source.
Yeah, and they've got 8 or 9 videos, maybe 10 by now. They had 6 when we were, and I would suggest this. We had a creation club. We were showing videos at our public library, and on Saturdays, and a guy stuck his head in and said, "What you doing?" And we said, "We're showing creation clips." And he says, "I'll be back." So he came back with his friend. I showed him one of these videos, the origin of DNA and the origin of life. And they got up to leave, and his friend didn't look real happy. And the first guy says, "Well, if this is true, it raises some interesting questions." And I says, "It most certainly does." And so I encourage people to start creation clubs. Your goal should have everybody in Burwell not believe in evolution in 10 years. You know, just keep inviting them, keep showing them. It's like, hey, you need to see all the information if you want to think. You're not getting all the information in class. You just memorize in class. You need to see another side if you want to think. And once they see the creation model, it's really hard to go back. And so, Creation Club would be mighty nice. This is Eric Hovind. This is creationminute.com. He's on YouTube also. This is the recipe for a universe.
Welcome to Creation Minute. I'm Eric Hovind. Today, let me give you the evolutionary formula to make a universe. Start with some nothing. Add to that some more nothing. Then let's add some time. Let's add some more time. We've got it! It's a perfectly balanced universe. Look at that, sun, moon, stars, planets. Everything's orbiting in perfect balance and order. You know, evolutionists theorize that this formula can enable everything to make itself, even people, with the exception of complicated man-made things like a microscope or a toothpick. But everything else about us in nature is the result of random chance and time. You don't even need raw materials. Those will make themselves. To learn more about creation, visit us at creationminute.com.
Yeah, and there's a lot of discussion about the age of the Earth. If the Earth is millions of years old and billions of years old, and there's been evolution for millions of years, well then God used death to bring life into the world. You know, there's a theological problem if you go along with evolution. And it calls Jesus a liar, really, because in Mark 10:6, Jesus said, "But from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female." Not billions of years later, not millions of years later. So Jesus is a creationist, not only a creationist, he's a young earth creationist. And they can disagree with Jesus if they want, but I highly recommend against that. And there was one guy, I was listening to ICR.org coming down, and he said, well, Jesus didn't understand science. Just the arrogance of that. And this is ICR.org. You go in there, you go into media, hit that button, then you go down to that's a fact. And a lot of these are about a minute long. It's like, how do you know how old you are? Is there a scientific test that tells you when your birthday was? What are you depending on?
My mom.
Eyewitness account, yep. Or a birth certificate, historical document. Yeah. And the Bible is a historical document, and God is the eyewitness. But let's talk about this.
Each year, it's fun to celebrate birthdays, and to be certain of our age, we can always check our birth certificate. But can any reliable methods determine the age of an object without a historical record? Radiocarbon dating measures the ratio of radioactive carbon-14 to stable carbon-12 in an organic artifact like wood or bone. The method assumes how much carbon-14 was present when the tree or animal died and how fast carbon-14 decays in order to calculate how old something is. Because carbon-14 completely decays in thousands of years, it should only be useful to date objects no more than tens of thousands of years old. However, using this method, scientists determined that samples from U.S. coal beds conventionally dated at 40 to 329 million years had carbon ages of 48,000 to 50,000 years. Diamonds are said to be billions of years old, but they still have carbon-14 in them, and returned ages of about 55,000 carbon years. And supposedly millions of years old dinosaur bones and other fossils show dates in the tens of thousands of carbon years. Radioisotope and radiocarbon ages can clearly contradict one another, so how can we know which method to trust? Measuring isotopes is very accurate, but the assumptions needed to convert those measurements into ages can't be verified. After all, how can anyone today verify how much of each isotope was in a rock or fossil when it formed long ago, or that no isotopes entered or left? Carbon-14 and radioisotope dates rarely match an object's real calendar age. But because the Bible is like a birth certificate for the world, resolving Earth's age is a piece of cake.
Piece of cake. And there's a lot of things that point to a young Earth. And this one I really enjoy. This is, let's see, Genesis Apologetics on YouTube. It's a classroom setting. You can go into there and there's the classroom playlist. And this is just one of about 30.
We know our early ancestors, like Lucy, were walking upright because we found her footprints in Tanzania.
Wait a minute, weren't those footprints like 1,000 miles away from where Lucy was found?
Yeah, give or take.
Well, how big were her foot fossils?
Well, they didn't actually find Lucy's hands or feet.
Well, so how big were the actual Tanzania footprints?
About 10 inches long.
That's how big my feet are, and I only wear 9.5.
So wait a minute, so they never found her feet, but Lucy, a 3.5 foot tall person, made 10-inch long footprints 1,000 miles away? If you ask me, it sounds like the story that Lucy walked upright is lacking some evidence based on the Tanzania footprints.
And in a classroom setting, the big indicator of people holding on to their faith is if somebody asks questions. If they're being taught something, and you're in school to get an education, so if you don't understand something, ask a question. And the key question is, how did life begin? Or where did matter come from? And when the class realizes the teacher can't answer that, they're less likely to believe this evolutionary fairy tale. So I encourage you to ask questions. And it's a valid question. And if they do try and snow job you, just say, well, there's $10 million that says it hasn't happened. So again, I encourage people to ask questions. Let's see, we've covered that. Oh, we'll go down to this. This is the skull I was telling you about. I have a video before and after. They stretched it. They changed the data to fit the theory instead of changing the theory to fit the data. And this is from the Twin Cities Creation Science Association. It's got a YouTube channel, and it's broken into, it's like a library. It's broken into topics. like geology, biology, astronomy, anthropology, history. And so you can hear what PhDs have to say from a Christian perspective or a creation perspective. And this is Mike Snavely. He's an excellent communicator. But this is what he has to say.
We've known about a large sauropod dinosaur carved into a rock in a national park in southeastern Utah. I had called the national park and I asked when the best time of day to get a picture of it would be. He suddenly blurted out, all right, the item in question is best filmed at 1:30 in the afternoon at the time of year that you're going to be there. But now I've exceeded my authority. I said, what'd you say? You've exceeded your authority? He says, yeah, that's a level 3 artifact. What's a level 3 artifact? So I asked him that. He goes, okay, level 1 is any object in the national park that you can see and you can ask us questions about. A level 2, we will not tell you that it's here, presumably to protect it. We will not tell you that it's here unless you already know that it's here, and then you can ask questions about it. A level 3 artifact, we have to pretend doesn't exist.
So that's what's happening. Yeah, so that's the game we're playing. And again, what I'm trying to do is get a vast number of people to realize they're misleading us. And when that happens, the power structure loses its power. So I encourage you to get informed in this battle, start sharing it, start asking questions, and let's get a vast number of people. And again, I'm skipping ahead. So this is CS 102, Creation Science 102. You'll be able to see more of these videos if you go into my website.
The simplest DNA repair mechanism of many is intimidatingly called base excision repair. Fixes a single damaged letter of DNA, and it's needed in every known form of life. If you had a damaged strand of DNA, first, one machine or protein enzyme scans down it and recognizes the single damaged letter. It would detach it from the DNA backbone, extracting it like an old, dirty tooth, leaving the functioning letters alone. Next, another machine detects the empty spot and breaks a single strand of the DNA backbone. A third machine then snips the DNA backbone again, removing the segment of backbone that's empty. These two enzymes have the ability to break the DNA backbone at will. Lucky ducky you, they only do this when needed, and at a specific site of damage. How could enzymes like this just pop up at the start of life without first destroying all of the DNA in sight? A question for the ages. A fourth machine then inserts the replacement part, an intact matching letter of DNA, complete with a new backbone segment. Finally, a fifth machine welds the replacement part to the backbone on both sides, completing the restoration. This is all oversimplified baby talk, of course. The actual mechanics of these things is far beyond what we can convey here. But all this madness is happening every day in every single one of these tiny little danger hot dogs, also known as bacteria. If your reaction to all of this isn't, "What?" then you're just not paying attention. This is literal submicroscopic surgery with the added monkey wrench of the cell does not stop operating while it's being repaired. Imagine trying to repair a Jeep while it's still running. And remember, base excision repair is just one of the many DNA repair pathways, and not even the most complicated one. Even the simplest organisms absolutely need repair mechanisms. The first life and all life needs repair at the very beginning. In bacteria, the instructions to make these 5 enzymes are coded in DNA, requiring more than 8,000 letters of information. If you're smart, you'd notice, just like the scientist Manfred Eigen, that this is a huge paradox. That much DNA could have never accumulated unless it was first protected by repair mechanisms. But the repair mechanisms themselves require at least this much DNA.
On YouTube, just type in long story short, origin of life, and you'll get all those.
So that's long story short. You can see that on, there's more of them. And so it just gives you the concepts. You know, and how did the DNA form without the DNA repair system? You know, there's just so many things. Like I've asked at a, you know, what came first, the heart or blood cells? I asked that at a museum one time. And they said blood cells. And I said, well, what's good is blood cells without a heart? And they said heart. And I said, what good is a heart without blood cells? And I said, I'll give it to you. And all this billions of years and all over this universe, you had the first heart and the first blood cells at the same time. What good is that without lungs? Or a digestive system or a muscular system? You know, how did animals, or how did we survive without vital organs? How did that happen? And then we're gonna talk about, you ever wonder about a baby? They're living in fluid, and then they get born and they can live in air. And it's really interesting because when they're in the mother, they don't really need the liver. There's a bypass around the liver, and they also around the lungs. They don't really need that's the bypass around the lungs. And this is a doctor explaining what has to happen for a baby to go from living in fluid to living in air. It's got to happen the first time. It can't happen step by step. It all has to be there right away.
Here's the prenatal with its 3 separate loops. Here's the newborn with the 1 loop that just goes figure 8, back and forth, body, lungs, body, lungs. What must happen? The ductus venosus, the bypass around the liver, has to close. The umbilical vein closes and the umbilical arteries close. The shortcut through the top half of the heart, through the foramen ovale, has to close. Look at the foramen ovale closing. With that increased pressure, that door is going to slam shut. And it happens just about that fast. It takes a few seconds. Over the next 2 or 3 weeks, cells grow and the thing is sealed shut. What about closure of the ductus arteriosus, that bypass around the lungs? It goes from this big wide artery down to that ligament. It becomes a ligament over the course of the next weeks. So those 5 things have to happen.
The first time, or it's not going to live. And my brother had helped him on his dairy farm, and I said, every one of your calves that probably happened to. And I gave a creations tour at our zoo in St. Paul, and they said probably every one of those mammals that had to happen. And I'll just close oh yeah, this is in the news a lot. You're going to have to see this one.
Climate change heats up the headlines, but is the Earth really getting warmer? Well, sort of. A warming trend existed for much of the 20th century, likely the last 30 to 50 years. But this warming trend leveled off in 1998. Some scientists and many activists claim that humans produce carbon dioxide, which causes global warming. They often point to the famous hockey stick diagram used in the 90s to supposedly prove their point. But research shows that the rise in CO2 actually happened after the Earth's temperature started rising. That means CO2, man-made or otherwise, did not cause the warming after all. And 2 significant changes in climate occurred within the last 1,000 years: the medieval warm period and the Little Ice Age. Both changes happened before human industry could have influenced climate. So it's much more likely that climate change occurs naturally. For example, climate physics link fluctuating solar outputs to Earth's temperature. Should responsible citizens blame themselves for global climate change? Science has not yet ruled out human activity as playing a small role, but factors far beyond man drive most or all climate change. But it does matter that we take care of Earth, not because our failures could completely wreck the environment, but because God placed us here to take care of His creation and to know and enjoy Him through the things that have been made. Romans 1:20.
Yeah, I think the sun has a lot to do with it. Sunspots, also volcanic activity has something to do with it. And I'm going to close with this one. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I've been looking at this for 20 years. My wife found it a couple of years ago. And you can hear this guy, Daniel Kish, is Batman. When he was 9 months, he lost one eye. When he was 13 months, he lost the other eye. And he just started clicking. And his brain processed the echoes from that click. So now he echolocates like a bat. And it's just amazing what God's designed into us. And listen to his story.
As a kid, I was raised to think of myself as pretty unremarkable. My parents, their emphasis, their regard for me was you're a kid like any other kid.
He got his first bicycle at the age of 6.
I learned to click like a maniac, and I learned to ride around the neighborhood. And if I ran into a pole, my parents just didn't make a big deal out of it. Running into a pole is a drag, but never being allowed to run into a pole is a disaster.
Riding a bike blind has become a kind of stunt he does to raise awareness that the brain can adapt and that people can do far more than they realize.
Years ago, it was just unheard of.
So if you'd all close your eyes for just a moment, okay? And you're going to learn a bit of flash sonar.
Now, you have scientists studying it, you have instructors wanting to learn it, you have instructors wanting to teach it, you have blind people wanting to learn it. Being able to navigate comfortably in any environment, under any circumstances, nothing can be more fundamental to freedom than being able to do that.
And did you notice how riding into a pole is a drag, but not being allowed to run into a pole is a disaster? So there's challenges in life, and it's good to fight through those challenges. And that's how you get confidence. And let's close real quick. So what can we do? I would encourage people to vote with their money. You know, and they ask you, what do you want for Christmas? Say, I want that Creation magazine. There's one on the back. It's got really neat articles. It's very fun to read, very good pictures. And then also everybody should sign up for ICR, for Acts and Facts. ICR.org. Sign up. You get a newsletter. And anybody know where Broken Bow is? You should go to that Creation. Anybody been to the Creation Museum there?
No.
No?
I want to go, but
You should.
I pass there every time I go to Broken Bow.
You should stop in. He's renovated it. I saw a picture of it in January when he took over. It's incredible what he's done with it. That's Brian Young. Okay, and so again, why does this matter? Hey, if you reject God and the Creator, what chance do you have of putting your faith in God's Son to pay for your sins? And if you reject that, where do you end up? So I encourage people to get on fire for Jesus. This is the funnest adventure out there. You looking for a cause? This is the cause. This is ground zero. You got God's truth versus Satan's lies, and creation versus evolution is ground zero of that battle. And if we can get this creation battle won, a lot of those other things will fall into place. And those are some of the fun websites. You'll be able to see them on the handout and back. Does anybody have any questions?
What should we tell our friends who claim to be Christians, and still believe that, you said the earth, the age of the earth, still believe in the millions of years and what the textbook's saying there? They want to be. They say they're... Right.
And that happened one time. This woman asked me, what side am I on in this creation evolution? I said, creation, how about you? And she said, both. And she said, can I say both? And I said, no, you can't. It's illogical. Two opposing things can't be true at the same time. See, the Bible has the earth before the sun. Evolution has the sun before the earth. And then they'll say, well, it's just cloudy for a few days. You couldn't see the sun. And they do all these mental gymnastics. But there's about 20 things, the order's backwards. But what they can't explain is the whale. The Bible clearly says the whales were made on day 5 before the land animals. Evolution clearly says that there was a land animal that went into the sea to become the whale. So ask them, which one do you believe? You can't believe both at the same time. And also prove it. Prove the world is old. There are a lot of those dating methods are flawed, like we saw. And if you go through this, if you watch one of these videos every day, man, you're going to be able to answer that stuff. And then I'd also ask them, Mark 10:6. Jesus said, but from the beginning of the creation, God made them male and female. That's not millions of years. That's not billions of years. It's right away on day 6. And so I would point them to that. And let's see. Yeah, and it's really, because what they're doing is they're using man's word to interpret the world, or interpret the Bible, instead of using the Bible to interpret the world. And our foundation makes sense. We've got a supernatural creator that made a natural creation. What the evolution has is blind chance, And theistic evolution is just a secular model with a cross on it. They're trying to have one foot in each world. And if you've ever pole vaulted, like I saw at a track meet one time, he came down with one leg on both sides. And pick a side and get busy. And there's no reason to that theistic evolution. The problem with that is evolution hasn't been proven. You can believe it. And also, theistic evolution, neither the Bible nor science teach that. They're trying to have one foot in each world. Yeah, God could have done anything, but what he can't do is lie. So if he did it in 6 days, he did it in 6 days. This isn't a matter of what God could have done, it's a matter of what God said he did. The real question is, are you going to believe what he said? That's a good question, though. Anybody else have a question? Yes?
Like people try to challenge the, where did matter come from thing. Do people ever try to ask you, like, where did God come from?
Oh, yeah.
Where do you
answer that? Yeah. You saw that, the law of causality, everything that had a beginning had a cause. And the sum of the causes, or the effect, can't be bigger than the cause. So my question to them is, what caused the universe? Whatever caused it has to be bigger than the universe. And the universe is pretty big. And they'll say, well, what caused God? And I said, well, everything that had a beginning. God didn't have a beginning. He's eternal. And if you get rid of God, now you painted yourself into a corner. There's 4 miracles that they have to believe. Matter from nothing, order from chaos, life from non-life, and non-material information, and something else from matter. That's called Einstein's gulf. Einstein said you can't get from matter to ideas. It's just a bridge that's unbridgeable, or a gulf that's unbridgeable, Einstein's gulf. And so basically, you need to have a creator. And a lot of times when I'm talking to kids at college, an atheist, one of my goals is to help him, probably the best I can do is help him realize he has faith too. He believes matter came from nothing, life came from non-life. He believes, and I have this on my sign at St. Cloud State, did hydrogen and helium really turn into people? Because that's what they believe. And if they say the millions of years and stuff, are we mutated animals? And if there was millions of years of death and suffering, then God used death to bring life into the world. And then it's not our problem. So why did Jesus have to die on the cross? And so there's some theological issues with that. Anything else? Any other questions? Those are good questions.
Do you see that these evolution hurdles are really preventing people from trusting God?
Yes. And Ken Ham did a book. It's called Already Gone, where 67% of the church kids stop going to church once they leave home. And this book kind of asked them, why is that? The main answer was they didn't believe the Bible was true. And then he asked, well, when did you begin to doubt? And it was middle school and high school. And that's when the Big Bang and evolution are being taught as dogma. So if there's people who can ask, where did matter come from? How did life begin? That helps the whole class. And there was this one girl, she concluded that, she asked about dinosaurs and the priest didn't have a good answer. And so she concluded that either Adam and Eve are false or dinosaurs are false. And I looked at her mom, she was telling me the story, and I said, Adam and Eve are true, dinosaurs are true, the thing that's false is millions of years. So you separate that. But yeah, evolution, theistic evolution, when they do the theistic evolution, that cracks the door open. Well, God didn't mean what he said about creation. Maybe he didn't mean what he said about marriage. Maybe he didn't mean what he said about gender. And why even believe anything if the first thing's not true? So yeah, there's some big issues with this, and a lot of issues depend on this. And then a kid at the table one time, I was at St. Cloud State, he says, well, why are they lying to us, or why are they doing that? And I said, well, think about it. If a government school can get rid of God, now what's the ultimate authority? Government. And I do think it's deeper than that. I think it's a satanic thing. So there's a big battle, but we have the high ground. We're making accurate predictions. Our science works. And actually, the major fields of science were started by creationists. The who's who of science were creationists. And you'll learn more about that as you go through my YouTube channel. CS 101, Creation Basics, will cover a lot of that. But good question. Good question. And we don't have to back up. I was at St. Cloud State one time promoting a talk with the guy who was showing me the ropes. And these professors were chirping at us. And one of them said, well, this is a marketplace of ideas. And my friend slid the Bible across the kiosk and he said, yeah, and we're submitting our ideas. And right then I realized we don't have to back up or shut up for anybody. Our ideas are just as valid as theirs. And they're both belief systems. One's a belief system of the past based on blind chance. That's like thinking this building got put together by blind chance. That'd be absurd. How much more absurd to think our bodies got put together by chance. And I told that to our president at St. Cloud State as I welcomed him to St. Cloud State. You know? Because basically I just want people to get all the information so they can think. Nobody should be mad at that. But we're not getting all the information in class. Or the government, or the media for that matter too. And so, you know, you need to see another theory if you want to think. And they don't allow it. So you got to educate yourself, and that's why I think a creation club here would be a great outreach for the community. You know, once a month, once a quarter, whenever you want, show a movie or have somebody speak, or, you know, just get this out there because there's a definite need for it. Oh, and also thank your pastor. You guys are blessed to have Pastor Joel. A lot of pastors won't give me the microphone. It's divisive, they say, but you make sure you thank Pastor. You got a good one here. But there is a card in the back that you can take. It's got my email address on it. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. So with that, this is my video or my YouTube channel. And again, check that out. And hopefully, you know, who knows? Maybe in 20 years, somebody will be flying you to Houston to hear what you have to say too. All right. So thank you so much. I appreciate your attention.
Question though, Brian.